And with any luck, we can say that was Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs with Gil Matthews on drums. And most people that think know that we're crazy. Good morning to you, Gil.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing very well, and that whooshing noise you can hear is us exhaling, thinking, what are we going to do for the next 10 or 15 or 20? But that's good, we've got you. Welcome.
Yeah, I was watching a movie.
Oh, this will be far less entertaining, this one. What were you watching?
Oh, look, I was watching Gladiator 2 because I thought that people were saying it was pretty bad, but I actually think it's pretty good.
Are you rating it against Gladiator 1 yet, or do you need to get a bit further into it?
I've only been into it about half an hour, but so far it's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Well, after we've had a chat, go back to it. That would be good. Hey, thanks for joining us, because we have this habit of playing songs and then people who are involved in the song pop up. And there we are. You were playing a drums just a moment ago. Let's take us back to even before the Aztecs days. Who gave you your first set of drumsticks?
Well, my first set would have been when I was about 5 years old, because I started playing. I actually started learning to play drums when I was 5. So my first set of drumsticks probably were given to me by my drum teacher, I guess.
Yeah, it's a
long time ago.
I would have thought too that a young boy learning the drums would be very popular with his family.
Yeah, there was a lot of noise going on. Look, it was a different era. It was it's hard to explain to people these days because the drummers were sort of the rock stars.
Yes.
Like, now the singers and the guitar players are all the rock stars. The drummers used to be the rock stars. People used to come to gigs to see the drummers.
Well, I guess the most obvious example, that's a chap called Ringo, who was reasonably popular with the girls as well as the musos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that you're talking about the Beatles. I mean, so that's all of them were pretty popular.
So, Gil, when at 5 years of age, you are a very, very mature man these days. So, were the Beatles even in your mind in those days, or was there some other musical influence that wanted you to banging on drums?
No, it was sort of like, I don't know, I suppose you could call it a gift of some description. My parents weren't musical. I started bashing pots and pans when I was about 3 years old, apparently. And by the time I got to 5, I was actually I had a drum teacher, and I was learning to play drums and also read drum music as well. And by the time I got to 8 years old, I was actually on stage playing concerts in Melbourne Town Hall.
That's extraordinary. That gift thing is interesting because I took drum lessons and I could never get my feet and hands to work in coordination. So that to me is probably the most difficult thing you need to do. Is it just something that some are gifted with and some not, in your honest opinion now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the same as people who are really good at recording bands, as recording engineers. You either have a great set of ears or you don't. It's something that you can't really learn out of a book. You've either got the gift or you don't have it, as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's the same with musical instruments. Some people are just born with it. You talk to people who are teaching kids, and they usually have one that'll stand out, which is, that'll be incredible, where the others all struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit the same when you see kids coming through who are good footballers, for example. You can say, oh, that kid's got good balance or reads the play well. I guess it is a gift, isn't it, in that respect?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm not trying to put everybody down, but I think some people actually do have a great gift at what they do, and obviously they're doing what they want to do because it's in them, it's in their blood,
We spoke with another Australian drummer, a chap called Jeff Cox. We got him. Yeah. We just got him to come out of his shell a little bit to have a chat, Coxie, and he said that drummers make great helicopter pilots because you've got to be doing 15 things at once, which is probably a good analogy.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Gil, you talked about bashing pots and pans at 3 and then lessons and then in a band at 8. But when did you really understand the seriousness of what you were doing was potentially a career rather than just something fun to do?
Look, I had a really big, I had a very serious history when I was 9 to 11 years old, touring America and doing sort of stuff like that. But at that age, I mean, you know, I guess I was what you'd call a child prodigy. You know, I look back and I was touring America with Buddy Rich and Ian Cripple when I was 11 years old. I don't remember a lot about it other than, you know, travelling across America and going to Disneyland and all that sort of stuff. I guess from a point of view of seriousness, I think the seriousness came when I joined the Aztecs in 1971, and we did that. We did a Melbourne Town Hall concert, and there was a line of people right down from the Melbourne Town Hall right across the Yarra, and I thought, wow, this is pretty serious stuff. Because when I joined the band, I didn't, you know, I'd heard of Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, of course, because Billy's 1960s hits and that part of his career, but I didn't really understand the fact that here we are playing Melbourne Town Hall and Daddy Cool is supporting us, because Daddy Cool was a really big band back then, you know. So that particular day, it was sort of like a bit of a epiphany, you know. I sort of woke up thinking, wow, this is a fairly serious situation that you've got yourself into, you know. I joined the Aztecs really only thinking I'd probably be in the band for 6 months and I'd move on. But that sort of day was one of those things where it was a really, you know, mind-altering sort of experience for me.
And so I'm always fascinated by these sorts of things. I always like to say, you know, if I had told you when you were 15 you would be doing this, you know, what would you say? I would have thought that you would have been listening to Billy Thorpe, heard him on the radio, Poison Ivy, Over the Rainbow, that kind of stuff. How would it be if we tapped you on the shoulder at that point and said, one day you're going to be hitting the drums with this bloke?
I don't know, because you've got to realise I did have a history of playing guitar from when I was 16 for a while too, and and we had 3 singles on HMV, and you know, then I joined another band with the lead singer of the Vibrants, John Perry. The band was called the John Rupert Group. We were playing around town, so I took up guitar for a long time, but I didn't. I guess if you had asked me the question, I would have said, well, I don't know really. I was in a band playing guitar, and we had a single called Jenny Jenny, and we went to Sydney and did a couple of gigs at the Star Club where Billy was pretty famous for playing, and we supported him at the Star Club, and I was 16 years old playing guitar. So I sort of come across him, you know, at that sort of really early age in my life. But I never thought that he would say the same. He never thought that he would go on to become something other than a well-dressed pop sort of rock singer. He would never have probably thought that he'd finish up jeans and t-shirts and playing boogie and in pubs and stuff like that with long hair and playing guitar. That was probably the furthest from his mind back in the 60s when he had Over the Rainbow and I Told the Brook and Funny Face and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah. Gil, it sounds to me like you're a very calm, organised, methodical young fellow, and clearly by the tone that is still the case. The wild behind-the-scenes images, perception that we had of the Australian rock and roll industry at the time, was that something that you dabbled in, or were you always sensible enough to be an arm's length from it?
Okay, 1972, just before we'd sort of recorded Most People Don't Think I'm Crazy, all the Aztecs, including Lobby Lloyd, lived in a house together in Brighton, in Melbourne. They were all macrobiotic. They were vegetarians, and you know, lived a sort of fairly a docile life, I suppose, except they were doing a fair bit of smoking dope and stuff, because everyone sort of did that back then. And I lived in Cheltenham, driving around in my convertible Mustang, taking my boat down water skiing. So completely, I got to tell you, it was just Billy called me and my friends the Cheltenham Hill Mob, because we were completely different. We were into sort of, fast cars and getting out and have water skiing and, skin diving and all that sort of stuff. And these guys are sitting around smoking bongs. It was two different worlds, but the worlds worked. It's like opposites attract, something like that, because I always thought, I don't need to smoke dope or anything else. My world is fantastic. I don't need to do any of that. So I was the odd man out. But for some reason, when I joined the band just became musically it went on to a different level. It went a gear up. And I'm not saying it was all my doing, but I'm just saying there was a combination of those four guys that got together, and something happened.
So take us back to, most people I know think that I'm crazy, probably the song that's most identifiable with the band, and you had joined the band by that stage. And then someone's walked in and said, hey, we've got this piece of music. Did you think at the time this is going to go bunter, or did you think, what sort of song's this?
No, I thought it was, we thought it was a good song, and you got to remember we didn't start playing it live before we actually recorded it. Just sort of iron out any little bugs about the song and that. And we sort of knew that it was a pretty good song, and it was well worth recording it and putting it out. And that's what we did. And then, of course, it became a massive hit, and even now it's regarded as one of the all-time great Aussie rock icon songs. So a little bit like, you put them in the same basket as Eagle Rock and I'll Be Gone by Spectrum and Black and Blue by Chain. It's one of the iconic songs from the 70s, and keeping in mind the 70s was a great time for all these bands,
Yeah, and of course, at about the same time, there's only one word that we need to say, Sunbury.
Yep.
That kind of kicked off a bit, didn't it?
Well, Sunbury was a really, really unique situation. We hadn't really had anything like Sunbury before. There'd been a couple of sort of very small pop festivals like Wallachia and Arumba. I don't know how to pronounce that. Arumba or something. Mm-hmm. They were very small versions of Sunbury. Sunbury was the big one, where 35,000 people came for 3 days in heat and dust and mud, and they put together the biggest PA they'd ever had in the history of Australia, which is 1,000 watts, which is pretty. You can get a guitar that's that much now. So it was. Sunbury was a pivotal point. I think it just, for the Aztecs and most people, I think I'm crazy. Just everything aligned properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I joined the band, and the band became sort of. Don't really know these sort of things, but the band became sort of like Australia's Three Stooges. Everywhere we went, it was just parties, lunacy, silly things took place. We sat around laughing. It was, the band got to a point where you talk about the silly stuff that happened rather than the songs you played. That sort of stuff. Things like when the Kirov Ballet came into the studio at Armstrong when we were recording More Us and Class, and the head ballerinas with 2 KGB guys came into the studio to see a Western recording studio, and Billy went up to the head ballerina and said, "You want vodka? Vodka? Brandy? Oh, we want brandy." And we had an account across the street at the pub, so we got brandy and we got scotch and we got everything, that we could lay our hands on. Billy sort of offered the 2 KGB guys a couple of joints. They're stoned, lying on the floor. Warren Morgan and I are doing pirouettes across the studio floor with the head ballerina at Kirov Ballet. Mate, I wish I had a film crew.
I wish I owned the pub over the road.
An account.
Hey, fast forward then, because what you're doing with Aztec Records is something we also want to chat to you about. First of all, congratulations on what has been a wonderful, wonderful thing for Australian music. Let's tell the audience a little bit about what Aztec Records is and why it exists.
Okay, why it exists. Well, I'll tell you why it exists. Billy rang me up one day and he said, Festival Records want to put out a best of Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs at $7.95. I told them to go and get effed. What are we going to do about it? And I said, what do you mean, what are we going to do? You know, Billy was a bit like that. So Aztec Records was sort of formed. I mean, I just decided on that day that we were going to put out Sunbury, Aztecs Live at Sunbury on CD. It had never been on CD properly before. So the whole business idea started, whereas I thought, well, I'm going to put the original covers on the front of the thing, the front of the CDs, because people will recognise the covers, because they grew up with that music. They'll know the covers when they see the covers of these albums. I'll put them in Digipack, which is the cardboard folding CD package rather than the plastic case package, because all the plastic cases always get broken in the mail. I'll put lots of bonus tracks. I'll get Ian McFarlane to do all the liner notes, and we'll put booklets with every release. I'll remaster every release in my studio, because I've got a fully fledged analog studio that I can do anything I want. And so you're talking about what's unique about that. And what's unique is that you have an Australian musician who owns his own studio, that doesn't have to answer to any record companies, who knows all the artists and all the artists know him. It was sort of like, someone's got to do this, and I'm the one right in the middle of it, so I'm going to be the one doing it.
Did you get any pushback from record companies? Because they can play hardball a bit from what we hear.
Oh, mate, I just tell them to stand in line. But assume you're dealing with one of the Aztecs.
Yeah. So you felt you had industry clout to support any pressure anyway?
Look, the record companies the first thing that they changed with their philosophy and their thought process was that the musicians who played on these albums have to give the okay to do it. I mean, up to that point, they'd been putting out stuff and never got permission of the artists, and the artists didn't even know half the time that they were putting out a best of or whatever. So that sort of changed with my stuff, because I approached the artist, because I knew the artist, and so like Blackfeather was really one of the ones that I went after for at the Mountains of Madness, and I contacted John Robinson, who played guitar, and I got him to ring up Festival Records and say that he wants to. By now it was Warner Music anyway. He wants the album put out, and Aztec Records are keen to put it out, and that's what happened. So we just didn't have any problems with the major record companies. And you got to also remember that I fund all the CDs myself. I mean, the money is part of the business idea, and I pay for everything, and I have given advances to musicians. I sell the product back to musicians for their merch stand, like Ross Wilson and Spectrum. I give them a much bigger discount on buying my CDs to sell on their merch stand than what they ever got from the major record companies. So I can tell you right now, and Normie Rowe, of course. I mean, it's a whole pile of them. Tam and Shud, lobbying the Colour Boards when the Colour Boards were together. So it's a business plan that just the major record companies don't actually understand it.
I think one of the great things, Gil, is, and this is not to blow smoke anywhere that it needs to be blown, but I've got a number of your Aztec albums at home on CD, and the easy thing to do would be to say, you know what, I'll put out Spectrum's greatest hits or I'll put out Matt Lake's greatest hits.
Yeah.
But you've actually recreated the original album. And most of those albums, particularly in the early 70s, they kind of had a story to tell. So if you don't, you go Dark Side of the Moon, for example, if you can't take one track off that and put it onto a greatest hits, it just doesn't work. And it's so much the case with, you look at Miles Ago by Spectrum. If you take one track off that, it kind of doesn't work. Whereas you put Miles Ago together and bang, you've got yourself an album that's been around for 55 years.
Well, let's just talk about Spectrum and the major record companies. Just remember that Spectrum's first album, which was called Part 1, the record company didn't want to put I'll Be Gone on it. That's off. Well,
yeah, well, that's a good move, isn't it? Not?
What does that sort of tell you? You know, they just don't know. You know, they always picked tracks to put out as singles, and half of them never made it. They turned into more bean counters than actually record companies that had a passion for the music, because once upon a time the A&R and PR guys, they really had a passion for the music. And the record companies, unfortunately, and now with Spotify and all that sort of stuff, it's just a money making exercise. They're just corporate, monstrous corporations. And look, here's a question for you. I put out the Go Records catalogue on a 4 CD box set with 2 booklets.
Mm-hmm.
I remastered that stuff and it took me 3 months. What record company in their mind would pay someone to remaster something that they're going to sell maybe 1,000 copies if they're lucky for 3 months of mastering? They're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
They won't do it. So what I do is sort of a labour of love, really. I mean, I love doing it. It's part of my passion. I love doing it, and I love trying to get it as good as I can get it. I remaster. Every Aztec release has been remastered by myself.
Gil, through Neil's connections and some very supportive publicists, we have had the privilege of speaking with a lot of Australian music icons over the journey, and what I've found out is you're very much a family, very connected, huge amount of respect and admiration for each other. Even though you might sit as the different cousin from Cheltenham, are you still part or feel part of that family network that Australian music is?
Sometimes I feel like I'm leading the family.
Hereafter known as Grandad.
Yeah, look, no doubt about it. I mean, I work at the moment playing guitar, believe it or not, with Normie Rowe. So I'm the lead guitarist in Normie Rowe's band, and we do a lot of gigs around the place, and we're going up to Queensland for 10 gigs in August and September. I play drums in a band called the Marty Rose Band. And we work around Melbourne. In fact, we're working tonight at the Arco Bar, which is in Moorabbin. I was a house drummer in a show called The Go Show. There were 6 of those shows at the Palais. There were like 2,500 people. Had lots of artists from the 60s. So, I do feel like I'm part of the family. In fact, I said to Normie, playing in the Playboys, if you want to call us that, and the original drummer, who's 83 years old, is still playing the drums in the Playboys, because I play guitar. However, Normie said it's good to have 2 drummers in case Trotter, who's 83, falls off.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah. Trotter feels good about that.
Yeah, well, Trotter's Trotter, mate. He's a classic.
Well, before we let you go, Gil, because we've got I've got to get you back to Gladiator 2. I just want to, the track we're going to play after we say goodbye to you is a young kid coming through. Her name was Marsha Hines, and she was in a thing called Jesus Christ Superstar. Now, I've got that Aztec release as well. My understanding is that John English's partner had the masters. Is that right?
Well, she finished up owning the masters because she bought them off the guy who recorded the show on his 4-track. He was part of the cast, a guy called Peter Chalmers. He was part of the cast. He recorded, I think, like the 100th show at the Capitol Theatre in Sydney, 1973. Mm-hmm. And from a point of view of performance and recording, it's a really incredible show. Andrew Lloyd Webber has actually said it's one of the best live shows he's ever heard of Jesus Christ Superstar. And you're talking about Marcia Hines, John English, John Paul Young, Trevor White.
Half the Australian music industry, Stevie Wright.
Yeah.
Graham Russell, Russell Hitchcock, Rory O'Donoghue. We could spend the rest of the afternoon saying this, couldn't we?
Yeah, well, there's a hell of a lot of people on that show. But the point is, you've got the CD, so from a point of view of performance, it's a great performance, isn't it? Really?
Oh, absolutely.
The playing's fantastic. You can hear everything. I did a little bit of remastering on it, not a lot, because the guy who recorded it were on his 4-track, mixed it back down and that sort of stuff. So John English's partner, Coralie Cameron is her name. She bought the rights off Peter, who unfortunately passed away. So she owns the rights. I licensed it off her, and I put it out, and it's been very successful and still sells. I mean, the whole Aztec catalogue still sells, all of it. You know, not massive amounts, but you know, you'll get a. Last week I got an order for Buffalo Dead Forever 5 copies for some reason. You'll find that out of the blue, all of a sudden, one title, there'll be a lot of orders for it. So maybe someone's done a write-up or someone's been talking on radio or whatever, you know. So, but the catalogue sells. And the other thing about it, I have to say, is that the catalogue is still available, all of it. Not like the record companies who you know, they delete product after. Well, they might put out 500 copies, and once the 500 go, that's the end of it. I just keep manufacturing it because I want to be opposite to what they do. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Gil, we try and ask a question you've never been asked before on a music interview. Being a petrolhead, who did you barrack for on Mount Panorama in the 70s?
Ford, mate. Anyone, Moffat, Johnson. Not so much Brock. he was a Holden guy, but a Ford guy, and because I did have a Ford Mustang when I was
convertible, I believe.
When I was 18, so I was a Ford man. But yeah, later on I did discover Ferraris, I have to admit.
Aha, we've found your little weakness.
Yeah. Well, I did have a weakness. I had 6 of them at one stage. So a Ford man.
Oh, excellent. Well, Gil, we are absolutely delighted to have made your telephonic acquaintance this morning. Thank you for taking time out of Gladiator 2. It's been an absolute thrill. If people want to buy records or indeed T-shirts, I noticed on the website the other day when I had a look, aztecrecords.com.au, is that right?
Correct.
Excellent.
Correct, and a few record shops too. I mean, they are like a Songland in Canberra and Greville Records in Melbourne and Red Eye in Sydney. They're in quite a few shops as well.
Yeah, go straight to the source.
Go straight to the source. Gil, thank you so much. That is a really, really pleasant half an hour you've added to my life. I really appreciate it.
Okay, great to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Gil. Gil Matthews there. Drummer with the Aztecs, but more recently founder of Aztec Records.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with these dudes, but that was really enjoyable.
It was, wasn't it? He's a good fella.